With it being October, I think it's the perfect time to start jumping into some spooky categories for ranking videos. And what better way to start this off than with the best jump scares in video games. Firstly, I'd like to thank Alpha Star's Patreon member Javirod for this recommendation. Anyway, one of the most important elements to our favorite horror games is the fact that they are, well, scary. And a very easy to use tool to do this is of course the art of jump scares. Finding that perfect moment to catch the player off guard and immediately send our hearts racing faster than a cheetah chasing its prey is one of the best parts about these horror games. But not every jump scare lands. As I just said, it's all about timing. Finding the right moment is key to pulling off the perfect jump scare. And on this episode of Nerd Space, I want to recognize the best and almost perfect jump scares in our favorite horror games. So my name is Ruben with Nerd Space Games, and this is my top 10 best jump scares in horror games. Oh, and by the way, just like with most of my videos, I'm only pulling one jump scare per franchise to make it, well, interesting. Well, sort of, but we'll get to that later on. Also, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Cool, now I think we're ready to go, so get prepared for some truly terrifying jump scares coming up. Let's get it. Number 10, The Ghost Until Dawn.
Gotta get out of here.
One of the most underrated horror games that I can think of is Until Dawn. It is hands down the best supermassive game as of today. Slasher-like story in a cabin in the woods, ghosts popping up out of the blue, and even mythical creatures like Wendigos overwhelm this game with potential. Sure, the gameplay isn't anything to write home about. However, the story, and most importantly for today's topic, the jump scares are truly impressive.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Is this what he was feeding them?
I mean, there could be a whole video about the top 10 jump scares in this game alone. So of course that makes it extremely hard to just pick one for this list. However, for me, a great jump scare is completely catching the player off guard with something terrifying. And when considering that, there is one moment that stands out above the rest as truly being unexpected while also being terrifying: the Ghost Woman. Number 9, Danny, Silent Hill 3.
Welcome to the Borley Haunted Mansion.
Silent Hill is probably the best horror video game franchise out there outside of Resident Evil. However, unlike a lot of the games that we'll come across on this list, Silent Hill doesn't get most of its horror from the jump scares. As a matter of fact, most of the fear you feel while playing Silent Hill is due to the atmospheric horror of the setting itself, the town of Silent Hill. With that being said, that doesn't mean that Silent Hill is lacking in jump scares completely. Actually, there are a few that come to mind throughout the series. The locker room in the original Silent Hill video game, for example. Or even the mannequin behind the flashlight in Silent Hill 2. But ultimately, the trophy here for me goes to the jump scare in Silent Hill 3's Haunted Mansion. More specifically, a man I call Danny.
That's Danny. A quiet young man, but quite friendly as you can see. He was so eager to meet you.
Number 8, Laura, the Evil Within. Evil Within is another horror franchise that just doesn't get enough love. However, if you're looking for a game that matches Silent Hill with its atmospheric horror, and a game that matches Resident Evil with its creative monster designs, then the Evil Within might be the perfect game for you. And just like other games on this list, Evil Within does have multiple jump scares throughout the series that I think can make this list. One of my personal favorites is the jump scare as you're staring at the picture on the wall in the first game.
Let go of me! Let go of me!
Oh, and let's not forget that terrifying ghost boss in Evil Within 2. Hell, even an autopsy is all of a sudden turned into a scary ass jump scare. Overall though, there is one moment that stands above the rest. Have you guys met Laura? She's great, you know. She loves long walks on the beach, she's an amazing cook, and she's a fucking Spider Woman. And before you get weird on me, I don't mean a Gwen fucking Stacy Spider Woman. No. I wish. Number 7, Locker Man, Condemned, Criminal Origins. Criminal Origins is one of the scariest games I've ever played. It really doesn't pop up a lot on people's radar, but this game is scary as hell. While it's not a jump scare, I do want to give a quick shout out to a part in this game that had me shaking throughout the entire area, the department store. You have enemies disguising as mannequins throughout this sequence, and let me tell you, it makes for one hell of a terrifying experience. However, the reason this game makes the list is thanks to the Locker Man. Now, I'll admit, the game definitely went out of its way to set this jump scare up, so it's not as unpredictable as some of the other jump scares on this list. Literally, it asks you to zoom in with your camera on the face of a dead body in a locker. What could go wrong? Only this body is not completely dead yet. As soon as you zoom in on the face, he immediately jump scares the hell out of you. Okay, you got me there, Locker Man.
Found Mr. Tibbetts. Image seems to match personnel file. It didn't come through properly, though. Can you take a close-up?
Number 6, T-Rex Break-In, Dino Crisis. Describes Dino Crisis as Resident Evil, but with dinosaurs. And for good reason. The mechanics and the puzzles are extremely similar, and they are both by Capcom. Inventory management might be a little different, but for the most part, it really is Resident Evil with dinosaurs. So if that's the case, then it obviously needs to have a few iconic jump scares, just like the classic Resident Evil games had. With that being said, I would say that most of them are not up to the level of our favorite zombie franchise. However, there is one that deserves a little spotlight. See, imagine you are walking through a small little room. You don't really expect anything crazy here since, well, it's a small room. What's the worst that can happen? Well, you'll be sorry that you asked that. Moments after entering the room, a fucking T-Rex burst through the window, sticking its head inside to get you.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me.
Number 5, look behind you, PT.
After killing his family, the father hung himself with a garden hose they had in the garage.
Look, I already know what you guys are going to say about this one. It's not a real game, it's a playable trailer. Also, I'm sure some of you will say that this is technically in the Silent Hill universe, meaning I cheated with having this one and Silent Hill 3 on this list. But you know what? You're right. You guys are absolutely right. This is technically not a real game. This is technically part of the Silent Hill universe. But with that being said, I still feel like it deserves its own entry on this list. Because let's face it, PT has provided more jump scares than even Silent Hill as a franchise has. It has provided more jump scares than some of the best first-person horror games out there. And it does so with a basic premise. You, the player, locked inside of a normal house. Does it really feel right to not include this entry on this list just because it was a playable trailer for a game that was never even made? No, but now that we got that covered, the question then becomes which of the most iconic jump scares in this game should be on this list. And straight up, I can go with any of the Lisa moments. Behind the door. Lisa upstairs looking down at us. Chilling in the hallway. But my favorite jump scare is when the radio show all of a sudden talks directly to you and tells you to look behind you. Listen to the radio host and you are treated to an up-close encounter with our girl Lisa.
The mother, who was shot in the stomach, was 204-863. Seen after neighbors called 911 found the father in his car listening to the radio. Several days before the murders, look behind you. I said, look behind you, like he was chanting some strange spell.
Number 4, the bathtub, Internal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem. I've said this on multiple videos of mine, but Internal Darkness is hands down one of the most creative experiences in horror games. See, this GameCube exclusive introduced a really unique mechanic to where the player slowly grows more and more insane. And while it doesn't appear to be that big of a deal at first, the game starts playing tricks on you throughout the experience. And I don't just mean the character, I mean you as in the gamer. For example, the walls might start bleeding. Your character's head might get chopped off, but it turns out to be a hallucination. Or even the TV pretending to turn off. Yeah, that's a thing. But of course, to go along with the horror theme, there are some things that can happen that provide a pretty intense jump scare. For example, a woman appearing dead in a bathtub full of blood out of nowhere with this horrendous scream she makes. Yeah, that one gets me every single time. Number 3, The Hanging Man, Outlast.
Get them out! Please!
Okay, so we finally made our way to Outlast. Now let's be real for a second. Did any of you really believe I wasn't going to include any Outlast jump scare for this list? Are you kidding me? After how truly terrifying this game and its sequel were with jump scares? No, absolutely deserved a spot on this list. Considering that you are exploring areas with a video camera being your primary line of defense throughout most of the game, obviously it was going to rely heavily on the scare factor. And there were a lot of those. Now, most of the jump scares that I really liked in the original game was due to best boy Chris Walker.
Little pig.
However, there are some really intense jump scares in the series. Hell, in Outlast 2, almost every scene in the school got me. But I felt like the original game was better when it came to the jump scares. And ultimately, there were a lot more that caught me off guard in this game. Hell, most of them were from random inmates and patients just popping up out of the blue, not even doing anything. Still, I will never, ever get over one moment that had me shaking for the rest of the game. The hanging man. Walking through that door for the first time made me scream louder than I have ever screamed before. Number 2, Nemesis jumping through a window, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis.
Jill! Brad! We've got to...
Resident Evil is the king of survival horror. I would go as far as saying that it is the best horror franchise out there. So it really shouldn't be a surprise that Resident Evil is also full of jump scares, especially the classic original trilogy. And 3 moments really stand out to me as the best jump scare in the series. And I'm not gonna lie, it was hard deciding on one. As a matter of fact, just to see what others decided on, I put a poll out there on the channel after making this video. At the time of recording, I have no idea which one received the most votes. Funny enough, there was one entry on each of the original trilogy games that I consider for this list. For example, the original game's Zombie Dog Hallway. Or even the Licker jumping through the interrogation room's see-through window. But ultimately, I gave number 2 to, of course, Nemesis jumping through the window in Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. I mean, the dude fucking jumps through a window, but not just jumps through a window, he jumps through a window with a rocket launcher. Like, seriously, what the hell, dude? But before we get to number 1 on this list, there are a few honorable mentions that I want to throw out there just because they deserve a little attention as well, despite not making the list. Check it out.
Okay. Good. Steady. We gotta get you out of this straitjacket.
Where am I?
All right, I know you're confused right now. I can explain everything, but you gotta trust me, okay? Listen, you're in terrible danger.
Deserve to die. They all deserve to die.
Number 1, calibration test, Prey. This one might completely shock people to see it as number 1. I'm sure a lot of you are already hitting up those comments. Ruben, aren't you a huge Resident Evil fan? Shouldn't something from that series be number 1? Ruben, are you telling me that you are scared of the black gooey monsters in Prey more than anything else on this list? Well, yes, but let me explain. Firstly, I think Prey is another underrated horror game. It's a game that didn't get to live up to its full potential. I truly believe that the horror in this game is top notch. It takes something as basic as black blob, alien-like creatures and gives them mimic abilities, meaning they can literally take the shape of anything nearby. A garbage can. A mug on a desk.
For this next part, I'm going to display an image. I want you to take a good look at it. In a moment, I'm going to ask you what... is my coffee? It's empty.
Hell, even a fucking mannequin. But you know what? Despite all of that setup and learning how these creatures work, nothing could have prepared me for the calibration test. See, I've always believed that when solving puzzles in horror games, you're essentially safe while working on them. Silent Hill, Resident Evil, hell, pretty much any classic horror game with puzzles that you can think of gives you a sense of safety while you work on a puzzle. Now, imagine that out of nowhere this formula changes. Say you're working on a puzzle, and in the middle of the puzzle, it suddenly breaks open and a monster is in your face ready to end you. Yeah, that's pretty much what the scene is. When you manage to take a player's sense of safety and force them to focus closely on the screen to solve a puzzle, only then to immediately pull out a jump scare during that puzzle, hell yeah, it's gonna be one of the scariest and most unexpected jump scares. But that does it for this episode of Nerd Space Games. Hit up the comments and let me know what is your favorite jump scare in a horror game. Do you agree with my very surprising pick in Prey, or is there one that didn't even make the list that you think deserves the number 1 spot? Let me know, nerds. Also, side note, this is the month of October. I want to do as many Halloween and horror game related ranking videos as much as possible throughout this month. So I'm looking to you guys. Outside of Resident Evil, what horror video game ranking videos do you guys want to see the most? Leave that in the comments, and if I pick yours, I'll give you a shout out. Anyway, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe for more ranking videos like this one, as well as leaving a like on this video to help your boy out with getting this video out there to as many people as possible. But as always, I'll catch you guys on the next episode of Nerd Space Games. Take care.